Imagine waking up in the ancient world during winter. Not cute winter. Not holiday card winter. Not pumpkin spice and cozy blanket winter. This is brutal winter. The kind where the wind tries to remove your soul. The ground is frozen. Food is hiding. Every footprint matters. Water may be ice, and getting a drink can become a full survival mission. And the sun clocks out early like it has a second job. There is no heater, no grocery store, no weather forecast, no modern coat, no emergency room, no electric light. If the fire dies, everyone looks at it like the family business just collapsed. For ancient humans, winter was not just a season. It was the final boss. During Ice Age conditions, huge parts of the world became colder, drier, and harsher. So survival was not about one lucky trick. It was about stacking solutions. Fire gave warmth, light, cooking, and a reason not to panic after sunset. Clothing turned animal hides into wearable architecture. Shelter blocked the wind, trapped heat, and turned open cold into a survivable space. Food strategy decided whether the group reached spring or became a cautionary story. Tools turned hands into survival machines. Movement meant following herds, rivers, routes, and memory instead of arguing with snow. Teamwork meant someone watched the fire, someone repaired clothing, someone prepared food, and someone kept the children alive. Every night, all of those systems had to work because winter did not care how tired anyone was. Fire was the ancient world's most dramatic roommate. It warmed the body when the air outside wanted everyone to become furniture made of ice. It gave light after sunset, which was useful because darkness had terrible customer service. It cooked food, softened tough meat, and made dinner less like chewing a leather boot. It helped keep predators away, or at least made the camp look less like a free buffet in the dark. Around the flames, people could gather, repair tools, plan tomorrow, and remember they were still alive. Fire turned the night into workshop time. It gave hide workers enough light to scrape, sew, patch, and save everyone's freezing elbows. But fire was not magic. Fire was work. What had to be found, carried, dried, protected, and treated like ancient treasure. Wet fuel was basically winter laughing directly at your plans. Embers had to be watched, because losing fire could mean starting the whole miserable process again. Someone had to stay awake when everyone else wanted to become a pile of sleeping fur. That tiny orange glow was warmth, kitchen, night light, alarm system, and emotional support object. Without it, the cave became a dark refrigerator with worse reviews. So firekeeping became one of the most important jobs in camp. The firekeeper was not just sitting there dramatically. They were protecting civilization's smallest sun. And around that tiny sun, language, memory, teaching, jokes, warnings, and stories could survive the night. In a snowstorm, fire was not decoration. It was the difference between a camp and a problem. So yes, ancient humans had no thermostat. But they had fire, and fire was doing the job of an entire apartment building. Ancient winter clothing was not fashion first. It was survival architecture for the body. A loose hide might help in mild cold, but brutal winter laughed at loose hides. So people had to turn raw material into real protection. First came scraping, because stiff hide makes terrible winter pajamas. Then came cutting, shaping, and planning where every piece should go. A bone awl could pierce holes through hide like an ancient survival hole puncher. A needle and sinew could pull separate pieces together into something that actually fit. The difference between loose hide and fitted clothing was the difference between shivering and functioning. Layering trapped warm air, which is basically ancient humans bullying cold with physics. A hood protected the head, neck, and ears from becoming tiny frozen complaints. Hand wraps and mittens kept fingers useful, because frozen fingers are terrible employees. Foot wraps and boots protected toes, the most dramatic little citizens of the body. Every seam mattered, because wind searches for gaps like it is being paid commission. Wet clothing was dangerous, so staying dry became part of staying alive. A torn sleeve was not a fashion emergency. It was a survival emergency. Children learned by watching, because winter did not wait for a formal sewing class. One coat could represent hours of labor, shared skill, and a group silently agreeing not to freeze. There was no closet full of backup jackets. There was the clothing you made, repaired, guarded, and prayed still worked. So when ancient humans survived winter, they were not just wearing skins. They were wearing technology. Shelter was the difference between being cold and becoming an ancient freezer with feelings. A good shelter said, "Come in, the wind is not invited." Caves were useful because nature had already done some of the construction work. Inside a cave, people could gather close, protect tools, keep food dry, and pretend the storm was someone else's problem. But not everyone had a cave waiting nearby, like a prehistoric rental property. So humans built shelters from whatever the landscape offered: wood, hides, stones, bones, branches, snow, and stubbornness. The first job was blocking the wind, because wind steals heat like it has legal permission. A simple windbreak could turn deadly air into merely annoying air, which was a major upgrade. The second job was trapping heat, because a shelter that leaks warmth is just a polite snow sculpture. People slept close together because body heat was the original subscription-free heating plan. The floor mattered too, because lying directly on frozen ground was basically asking winter to enter through your back. Smoke had to escape, but heat had to stay, which made shelter design a very annoying puzzle. In some Ice Age places, mammoth bones became part of the architecture. That was not because people were trying to be spooky. It was because giant bones are strong, heavy, and useful. Imagine looking at a massive animal skeleton and thinking, finally, building materials. Hides could cover frames, stones could hold edges down, and snow could pack around the base like insulation. A shelter was also storage, workshop, nursery, bedroom, kitchen, and emergency meeting room. Choosing the wrong place could flood, freeze, smoke out, collapse, or place your front door in the wind's favorite punching lane. So shelter was not just a place. It was location strategy, weather strategy, smoke strategy, heat strategy, and please do not freeze strategy. A good shelter did not make winter friendly. It just made winter wait outside, angry and unemployed. Winter's real weapon was not just cold. It was hunger. Cold made you uncomfortable. Hunger made the entire group start doing math with calories. In spring, plants might be generous. In winter, plants mostly filed a disappearance report. Animals moved. Herds wandered. Tracks appeared, vanished, and sometimes led nowhere useful. A successful hunt could feed people. A failed hunt could turn dinner into a motivational speech. So ancient humans did not simply find food. They planned for food before winter arrived. Drying meat turned a short feast into a longer survival plan. Smoking food helped preserve it, and also made the camp smell like survival barbecue. Storage pits, baskets, covered bundles, and frozen ground became the ancient version of a pantry. Every stored piece of food was basically a tiny vote for surviving until spring. Fat mattered because winter burned energy like a campfire with expensive taste. Marrow, fat, fish, dried meat, roots, nuts, berries, and anything edible became serious business. Near rivers, lakes, or coasts, fishing could turn frozen water into a dinner negotiation. Shellfish, fish, and coastal foods could become a cold-weather safety net where geography allowed it. On open land, people watched herd movements like their stomachs had hired private investigators. Tracks in snow were information, and information could become breakfast if you were lucky. Sharing food was not just kindness. It was group insurance with worse paperwork. Children, elders, hunters, toolmakers, and hide workers all depended on the same storage pile. The best winter meal was not fancy. It was the meal that existed when everyone needed it. Surviving winter meant turning today's food into tomorrow's hope, and tomorrow's hope into spring. In winter, tiny tools could decide enormous problems. A stone blade was not just a sharp rock. It was a portable problem solver. It could cut meat, slice hide, shape wood, and make winter slightly less rude. A scraper could turn stiff hide into clothing material instead of a crunchy disaster blanket. A bone all made holes where fingers alone would simply give up and file a complaint. A needle could pull seams together, and a good seam could keep the wind out. Cordage tied shelters, clothing, traps, bundles, and basically half of civilization together. A spear point could turn distance into safety during a dangerous hunt. A hook, trap, or harpoon could make frozen water less smug. But the most important tool was often the one that was repaired before it broke completely. Winter did not reward people who waited until the blade snapped, the cord broke, or the needle vanished. Repair culture was survival culture. Sharpen, patch, retie, resew, reuse, and recycle. Children learned that a tool was not disposable. A tool had a career. A broken tool was not trash. It was future parts, if you were clever enough. Shelter tools mattered too, because a loose hide wall at midnight was not a small issue. Food tools mattered because cutting, drying, storing, and carrying food all required equipment. Clothing tools mattered because one bad seam could invite winter directly onto your ribs. A camp with good tools could respond to problems faster than a camp with only panic and vibes. So the Stone Age was not just stone. It was design, maintenance, memory, and patience. Tiny objects kept big humans alive, which is why losing the good needle could ruin everyone's evening. Ancient humans did not survive winter by randomly wandering around like frozen tourists. They moved with knowledge, tracks, rivers, coastlines, forests, caves, fuel, and memory. If the herds moved, dinner moved. And dinner did not send a polite calendar invite. Snow could hide food, but it could also reveal footprints, broken branches, and the direction of survival. Rivers were routes, water sources, fishing zones, and dangerous icy traps all at once. Coastlines could offer shellfish, fish, birds, driftwood, and a reason not to argue with empty inland snow. Forests could mean fuel, shelter material, animal signs, and also the possibility of getting extremely lost. A winter camp had to be near food, water, fuel, shelter material, and a way out if things went bad. Move too early, and you wasted energy before the land was ready. Move too late, and snow, ice, or missing herds could trap you like nature had slammed the door. Stay in the wrong place, and the landscape starts charging rent and calories. There was no GPS, no map app, and absolutely no calm voice saying, recalculating route. Instead, people relied on elders, stories, remembered valleys, dangerous ice, useful caves, and the places where animals returned. A good scout read the landscape like a book written in snow, mud, smoke, wind, and animal drama. Movement also meant carrying children, tools, food, hides, fire knowledge, and everyone's least favorite bundle. You could not pack like a modern traveler. Every object had to justify its existence. A group moved slowly, because survival was not a sprint. It was a freezing logistics department with feet. At night, choosing where to stop could decide whether the camp rested safely or became a nervous snack rumor. The best route was rarely the shortest route. It was the route where people could still be alive at the end. So ancient movement was not wandering. It was strategy in motion, dragging food, fire, family, and hope toward the next survivable place. Winter punished loners. A group could share warmth, food, tools, work, warnings, and extremely judgmental looks when someone wasted firewood. Someone watched the fire, because fire did not come with an automatic renewal plan. Someone repaired clothing, because a tiny sleeve hole could become winter's personal doorway. Someone managed food, because hunger is terrible at respecting individual career goals. Someone watched the children, because toddlers and open flames have never been a calm combination. Hunters brought knowledge of tracks, herds, weather, and when the landscape was clearly saying, not today. Scouts brought routes, shortcuts, danger signs, and the very important information that the river was making suspicious noises. Toolmakers kept blades sharp, points ready, cords tied, and panic slightly delayed. Storytellers kept fear from becoming the loudest person in the shelter. Elders mattered because memory mattered. They remembered which valley flooded, which cave filled with smoke, which ice cracked, and which relative was terrible at firewatch. Children learned by watching hands, not by opening a prehistoric textbook called Advanced Not Freezing. Skills passed from person to person: scraping, sewing, tying, tracking, cooking, repairing, and not doing obviously stupid things in a blizzard. Food sharing was ancient risk management, because today's successful hunter could become tomorrow's hungry person. Closed living meant arguments happened, but cooperation still had better survival numbers than dramatic cave loneliness. A shelter full of people was noisy, crowded, smoky, and sometimes annoying, but it was also warmer than heroic isolation. The group was not just social. The group was technology. Modern people have apps, delivery, group chats, and customer support. Ancient people had actual people. Nobody defeated winter alone. They survived because many hands made one living survival machine. Winter survival was physical, but it was also psychological. Long nights made every sound outside feel like breaking news from the darkness. A crack in the ice, a howl in the distance, or a branch snapping could make the entire camp freeze without becoming frozen. Darkness was not empty. Darkness was where your imagination got promoted to camp security officer. This is where stories became survival equipment. A story could turn panic into a lesson, and a lesson into something a child remembered years later. Stories warned people about thin ice, bad shelters, foolish pride, and the legendary cousin who forgot firewood. Around the fire, memory became a shared survival database with terrible Wi-Fi but excellent drama. Morale mattered because a group that panicked wasted energy, made bad choices, and argued with the weather like that would help. Songs, rhythms, carving, painting, and ritual could give the night a shape people could handle. For children, these moments were school, entertainment, warning system, and emotional blanket. For elders, storytelling kept knowledge alive when there were no books, no hard drives, and no cloud backup. Fear was not useless. Fear told people to stay alert, keep the fire alive, and maybe not investigate creepy noises alone. But too much fear could turn every shadow into a committee meeting about doom. That is why laughter mattered. A joke could release pressure without wasting food, fuel, or daylight. Modern people doomscroll. Ancient people doom-stared into the darkness and asked the fire for emotional support. A calm group could save energy, share tasks, sleep in turns, and make tomorrow less terrifying. A frightened group could burn through energy faster than a badly built fire burns through dry wood. So morale was not a luxury. Morale was insulation for the mind. Ancient humans survived winter not only by keeping bodies warm, but by keeping the group brave enough to reach spring. So how did ancient humans survive brutal winters? Not with one miracle trick. They survived by stacking systems: fire, clothing, shelter, food, tools, movement, teamwork, memory, and morale. Fire was their heater, lamp, kitchen, warning system, and emotional support flame. Clothing was their insulation, armor against wind, and emergency tow protection department. Shelter was their wall against the weather, their workshop, their bedroom, and their please stop screaming wind room. Food storage was their supermarket, pantry, refrigerator, and anxiety management plan. Tools were their hardware store, repair kit, kitchen drawer, and survival insurance policy. Movement was their weather app, route planner, food tracker, and backup plan on legs. Teamwork was their social network, emergency service, childcare system, and group therapy circle. Memory was their archive, map, warning label, history book, and family group chat without the phone. Morale was their mental insulation, because a terrified camp burns energy faster than a bad fire burns wood. Now compare that to modern winter, where one finger touches a thermostat and the room becomes spring with walls. Modern people complain when the heater takes 30 seconds to work. Ancient people spent hours convincing firewood to cooperate. Modern people open a refrigerator. Ancient people opened a storage pit and hoped nobody had been too optimistic in autumn. Modern people check a weather app. Ancient people checked clouds, wind, animal behavior, and the elder's suspicious face. Modern people buy socks. Ancient people had to make foot protection or let their toes submit a formal complaint to winter. Modern people drink hot soup from a kitchen. Ancient people turned stored food, fire, water, and patience into survival dinner. So yes, ancient humans were brilliant. But if you offered them central heating, antibiotics, insulated boots, and indoor plumbing, they would not say, "No thanks, I prefer character development." They were not primitive fools shivering randomly in caves. They were freezing engineers with families, tools, plans, jokes, and very high heating bills paid in firewood. Ancient humans beat winter with fire and teamwork. Modern humans beat winter with central heating and emotional weakness.